going to talk about the X54 by the company Mahlkönig. Mahlkönig actually is German for the king of grinding, and they are very well known for professional grinders like the EK43, the E65 or 80. So this is their first smaller grinder for home use. And I thought we'd start by just me trying to give you guys a feel for the grinder. So the grinder itself is not all that heavy. It's 5.1 kilos, but it is nicely constructed. The whole thing is made out of metal. You've got some interesting design features on there as well. You've got a magnetic catch tray here, which is something I like to see. And then you've got here on the side a stainless steel adjustment dial with a planetary gear inside. This dial is actually keyed, so if you have to take it apart for any reason, you're forced to put it back in the correct way. And I like to see that in a design. Then you got something else interesting on this particular grinder. You can pop out this part here, your portafilter holder, and you can put in a blind plate. There you go. So with the blind plate in there, you can use the cup grounds catcher, which is actually my preferred way to use this machine. Otherwise, you can just pop that out, put in your portafilter holder, and use it that way, which is really cool. I've got this Gaggia Classic Pro portafilter right here, and it fits in there real nice. And as you can see, that when you've got this portafilter holder in there, you just have to press the button with the portafilter and that's going to start the grind for you. Now the portafilter is made actually for a 58 millimeter portafilter. Since I use often differing ones like 51 or 54 millimeters, I prefer to use the cup catcher instead. All right, something else unique to this grinder is actually how the operation works. You've got a curved display here on the front that shows you different times. So right now I'm on 2 and it's at 30 seconds. If I go to 1, that's set for 10 seconds. You've got in total 4. And when you go all the way to the right, then you're on your Wi-Fi setup. Okay, so Wi-Fi will actually show you some interesting things about the grinder. More or less what's interesting is it shows you how many shots that you've done. So far I've done 103 shots and have run this for a total of 24 minutes. And the reason that's interesting is that so you know someday when it's time to change your burrs. What else is good about the app is that it shows you some auxiliary information, like where to find spare parts from. That's very convenient. As well as a bunch of YouTube tutorials from Mahlkönig. So that's actually a very good resource. And that is something that I have to praise about Mahlkönig is they have a very good website with a lot of information. So if you have any issues with your machine, if you want to exchange any parts, they have a lot of spare parts available and they have a lot of YouTube videos too. And I use some of those videos to take this machine apart. Now talking about taking this grinder apart, it's really made me appreciate more how the grinder is designed. So everything is made, in my opinion, with quite a high quality. Everything, whether it's a metal part or a plastic part, is a high quality one. So you've got 2 different bean hoppers you can choose from. This is a smaller one here. There's also a larger one that you can put on. And what I like about these bean hoppers is that they close a reed switch on the grinder, which is great. So that way they're really safe. It's the first time that I can remember seeing a reed switch on a grinder so that if there's any little fingers around, nothing's going to happen. Because without that reed switch being depressed, the thing can't run. You're going to see an error here. Error 001. That means that the bean hopper is not installed and therefore the burrs cannot turn. So I believe that these are a 500 gram bean hopper and a 250 gram bean hopper. And what's cool about them is they've got like a little bowl on top so that you can put stuff on top if you want to. That's kind of neat. Now I mentioned that I took this grinder apart. One thing that I had to do is remove the knob here on the side because it wasn't calibrated very well. The factory setting was such that even turned all the way to the finest setting at 1, it wasn't quite fine enough for espresso. So I had to remove the knob here and readjust the planetary gear here. Now I wrote a blog article and took lots of pictures and documented this grinder. So if you want, check out the blog article. I'll link it down below in the video description. After having calibrated the grinder, I'm quite happy. So now I've got a good range for espresso. It is a stepless grind. And so right now I'm at 4, and 4 fits for me well. If I turn it to 20, then I'm about in the range for a drip coffee. All right, taking a look around the back, we've got an on-off switch here. And we got a fuse reset. I believe there's a thermal fuse inside. All right, guys, if this video has been helpful to you at all up to this point, please go ahead and give it a like to push it up to other people to find. And if you'd like to see reviews and tips on grinders like this one, consider subscribing to the channel. All right, as I've mentioned, I really like how this grinder was designed. But now it's time to get down to how the grinder performs. What I'd like to say about the grinder is you get a good fluffy grind. It is pretty much static free and clump free. So those 54mm stainless steel burrs inside, they do a good job. It's also a quiet grinder. All in all, it's a very nice grinder with one caveat. It does not do great with single dosing. I think that the reason is because there seems to be a lot of retention in the chamber. What we're going to do now is measure out some beans. I'm going to measure out 16 grams and we're going to see how much comes out. So let's go ahead and put some beans in there. 16.0 exactly. And let's see how much we get out. Now what I'm going to do is let it run for 30 seconds, although you'll notice it grinds at about 1 gram per second. You'll hear that actually the burrs are done grinding after about 16 seconds, but that still a bunch is going to come out little by little for the rest of those 30 seconds. Let's take a look. All right, how much did we end up getting out? We got 15.4. That is pretty good that time. Now, if I let it run another 30 seconds, I think we'll get some more out. How much should we get now? 17.3. Okay. So there must have been some extra beans still stuck in the chamber from before, from earlier this morning when I was using this grinder myself. So as you see, it's not that consistent. Let's try it 2 more times and see how much we get out. 16, good. I gotta put the beans in. Okay, so after about 15 seconds or so, you can hear the burrs are done, but they still have to spin and have those little fingers around the burrs carry the rest of it out. Okay, so there, let's see how much did we get. Oh, that time we got 16.0. Exactly 16 grams. That's very good. This time 16.1 grams. Okay, burrs are done. Still it's pouring out. We got 16.1 out that time. All right, so these last 2 trials, I actually got out everything that I put in within 30 seconds. So it takes about 15 or 16 seconds to actually do the grinding, and then another 15 seconds or so to get all the grounds out of the chamber inside. And those 2 have actually been very consistent. The ones I had before, they did vary a bit, as I mentioned. But I think maybe that has to do with just adjusting the grind, and if you leave it on an adjustment for a certain for a long enough period of time, it may actually have an effect there. Let's try one last time. Okay, 15.8 grams that time. I put in 16.0, so there we're missing 0.2 grams. But actually, after doing tests and leaving it on the same grind setting, what I've determined is you actually get out most of what you put back in. So that's pretty good. If you switch in between espresso grind at like say 4 and go up to 20 for your pour over and then back, I think then you're going to see some difference until the burrs get settled in again. Well, let's do this. Let's make ourselves an espresso and see how it looks. So I'm using the ECP 35.31 or 3420 depending on where you live in the world. And I realized this is much cheaper than the grinder, but I find the grinder is really the most important place to spend your money. So here we go. Let's just see how the shot looks. I always do a little WDT, whether it's clumpy or not, just make sure it's distributed nice. And if you distribute from the middle towards the outside, then you can kind of avoid some donut shots. It's looking pretty tasty. All right, there we go. All right, there is our 2-to-1 ratio shot right there, 30 grams out. And how does it taste? Delightful. But yeah, the shot has got good body, it's got some good sweetness to it, and in general, it makes nice, tasty shots. Now, for fun, let's do one last thing, and let's just fill up the hopper with beans and see how consistent it is from one shot to the next in regards to the weight. So let's put this on 16. And let's see what we get. We are at a setting, by the way, of 3, and I did adjust it so that at 1, the burrs are just about abutting, okay? So at the setting of 3, which is an espresso setting, we got in 16 seconds 15.1 grams. Ooh, 17.7 grams. Okay, well the first time we had just put the beans in and the chamber was empty because we let the chamber empty out before as we ran it for 30 seconds. So now, okay, 17.7. I'm imagining the next one is going to be around 17.72. 17.6. 18.0. And let's just do one more. 18.3. So it looks like we are at 18.0 plus or minus, let's say 0.3. It's going to be good enough for home use, and that may differentiate a little bit too on the duty cycle. I've just run one after another. If you let it sit in between, it might make a difference. So let's pull a summary. What do I think about the X54 by Mahlkönig? I have to say that I'm impressed by the grinder, and it has to do mostly with ergonomics and thoughtful design. While it may not be perfect for single dosing, and while it may vary plus or minus 0.3 grams for a grind when you've got your hopper full of beans, it provides a nice fluffy grind, a declumped grind, a destatic grind. You see, we've kept our work area here quite clean actually. It's convenient to be able to just press this button here on the side. And you can choose to use either the catch cup here or the portafilter holder. Well, I like the round design just from an aesthetic standpoint. This also gets a stamp of approval from my wife. And as far as the engineering and design go, I like that they made things keyed so that you can put them back together properly. I think it's great that they have YouTube videos, that they have a lot of information on their website for any of us to be able to open up the grinder and fix anything that might need fixing and put it back together properly. Those are really things that I appreciate from an engineering standpoint. And I get nice espresso out of it. With that, I'm going to say if you'd like more information about this grinder, just head to my website, tomscoffeecorner.com, as I've included lots of pictures also of the inside of the grinder so that you can get a really detailed view and impression of this grinder. If I have to say something negative about the grinder, it would be I think they could have done something a little different to maybe bring the price down a bit. I don't know how important it is to people to have the Wi-Fi module in here. I like the display and it's nice to have the knob here. I'm not sure if you need 4 settings necessarily. Maybe 2 would have been enough. But I think if you would have removed the Wi-Fi module and maybe if you would have removed this mechanical ability to remove this plate and put the other one in, could have maybe brought the price down, and that could have opened it up to a larger market. All in all, nice grinder, check it out. Mahlkönig was gracious enough to send me this grinder to test out. No money exchanged hands, but I do appreciate the opportunity to use the grinder and to give it a review and my opinion. So thank you, Mahlkönig. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If so, please give it a like. Check out my other videos. If you like what you see, subscribe to the channel. It's totally free. And until next time, I say happy coffee drinking and happy espresso drinking. Pfiat euch, moin moin, auf Wiederschauen, servus, habe Dairy und tschüss.